As the old adage goes, exploit early, exploit often. And nothing is truer than that than the race to world first, as we have some more exploits to be talking about. It's kind of weird. We had an exploits to talk about last year.
Yeah, this time around it's not the exploit. This one's I think less dramatic than before because it's just it's not like any of the top guilds were exploiting. Right, what we had happen was a guild called Quality Assurance. They found a way to one-shot Mythic Gallywix with an internal ability, so some kind of like GM spell or something. They were able to kill off Chrome King Gallywix without like any items on, which is pretty funny. Looks like they got a couple more bosses down before they got stopped. So, very funny indeed. But they did get banned and removed from the Hall of Fame and everything. So
yeah, Blizzard ended up releasing
they made a blue post, yeah,
basically stating we immediately began an investigation into these unusual kills, and we detected a group of new accounts using an exploit to cast an internal spell to kill mythic raid bosses, including Gallywix. This was crazy. People
this
were
is very funny.
Yeah, I mean, people were very rightfully upset. I think that, stuff like this has happened in the past. I think we saw most recently was maybe like Torghast buffs and stuff like that, where Torghast buffs were allowed.
When I saw the kill, that was my first thought, was like, oh, somebody's found a way to do the Torghast thing again, because it seems like they haven't been able to fully fix that.
Yeah, I mean, that was my immediate first reaction as well. I mean, it's stupid. These people got rolled back. It got banned. There's no harm, no foul.
Well, they're all new accounts, so they didn't, everybody was, if they hid their IP correctly, they might still be out among us.
There's an imposter among us.
Yeah.
Beyond that, it's been mostly just kind of more of the same old. Splits are kind of continuing to ramp up over time.
All the top guilds have been pretty much on the same sort of lifestyle of some normal stuff, a lot of normal last fours, a lot of very, very split normal last fours. And then Heroic, Liquid has been able to do 2 up through the One-Armed Bandit. And I think Echo have been doing that as well with helpers on Heroic One-Armed Bandit. Liquid were not interested in doing helpers on Mugsy, so they've just been doing some Mugsies with full Liquid Raiders, including mains and alts.
Yeah.
This boss looks pretty nasty on Heroic, and I think Gallywix is very likely to be the same, where we just see guilds splitting it with all of their raiders.
Yes, I mean, you and I had a chance to watch some of the polls off stream. Max kind of talked about it at the end of day as well, that Heroic Gallywix that ended up looking like, they walked in there. He said it wasn't really anything that was especially challenging or
I mean, it's obviously hard, but like they were able to kill it. They didn't. So Liquid didn't actually kill Heroic Gallywix, but they got it to 5% and then all jumped off with like everybody alive. So
it was a full main run, so they didn't want to kill it with all their mains and loot lock them.
Right.
They're going to come back and
obviously they will be a little bit weaker. Although they weren't all on mains, they were just all in their main classes. So,
okay.
There were a few alts apparently there, but still, yeah, it should be something that they can do without too much wiping, hopefully.
But yeah,
it doesn't seem. Muggy seems kind of crazy. The DPS check on this fight for Heroic boss seems quite high. But again, that's week 1 gear. Everybody's gear is going to get so much better over the next couple days and next couple weeks. So I think I wouldn't be too scared of this if you're, say, a Heroic guild. I think that you've got 39 item levels to gain based on wherever you were last year, and there's going to be that stacking buff starting in 2 weeks' time as well. We're going to get our first hit of that 3% raid buff. So I wouldn't be too scared of this if you're a Heroic progression guild. But definitely this week it's been quite intense difficulty, really starting with like the 4th boss. Even Styx Bunk Junker, you're starting to get a serious ramp up in Heroic difficulty.
I think the biggest way that these race roll first guilds can make up a lot of time is One-Armed Bandit helper splits. They're doing 15 Liquid Raiders, 15 helpers. By minimizing the amount of wipes, the amount of times you actually hit that enrage, the amount of times that...
And Liquid was doing well on that today. It was a pretty small amount of wipes, all things considered, for a boss that, again, that DPS check is not 0. You basically have to have everybody live, or mostly everybody live, to have a good shot at it.
Now the only thing that's kind of ahead of us is finishing up the Mugsy splits, finishing up the Gallywix splits. I think there's going to be some more of the One-Armed Bandits for pretty much all the guilds as well. But again, it's just kind of getting those very rare items that we were really emphasizing the last couple of days, and making sure that all of your characters have this perfect gear, because you don't know if it's going to be a 1 week tier or 1 reset tier. You don't know if it's going to be a 2 reset tier.
Yeah.
But optimizing for a potential 1 reset tier is like a huge deal for these guilds.
Yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you don't do anything that could potentially be a huge mistake in either circumstance, right? You don't, because there are some things you could do that would be fine if it was 1 week or fine if it was 2 week, but a disaster if it's the other.
Absolutely.
And it's way too early to make that prediction. So all the Race World First guilds are keeping their options open, and they're staying ready for it to be either of those two. And then once we get to say Sunday, something like that, we know where we're at there.
Yeah.
We'll have a better idea of which of those situations we're in.
It kind of leads us to the next question of like, when is crafting going to be sent as well? Because that's part of the gearing process. There's a little bit of optimization in terms of when crests are going to be sent as well.
Some people have pretty easy choices.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of, if you have like a good one-handed weapon that you want to put Ascendance on, there's a decent chance you just send that with your Gilded Crest, and it's likely to be a great use of your 60 Gilded Crests. Nobody has done that yet in Liquid, but I wouldn't be surprised if people do that fairly early on, if it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, we're probably going to want to do this. But beyond that, yeah, using just the Enchanted Runed Crest you get for free from the Kill Gallywix quest, I think is going to be a pretty common use of that spark, and then saving those 90 Gilded Crests to put into, you know, trinkets and weapons and stuff that you get from the raid.
I think that as well, it's kind of, when are you going to send those enchanted crests? When are you going to send the Gilded Crests? When are you going to send the carved crest, the rune
So the
crests?
the crests are free. You send those. The rune crests are actually also free.
Yeah.
You also just send those in the Race World First setting. All these players are getting enough gear from Heroic that even the 90 rune crests is actually just enough, especially this tier, because you get so much stuff at Hero 3. Like, if you need to fill with a piece from M+, it can come from at Hero 3, which means there's only 15 rune crests to bring it to the maximum that rune crests bring.
Yeah.
So if you have a couple of Hero 4 pieces from the last two on Heroic, and then, you know, you can fill out with Hero 3 pieces, even just the 90 rune crests, they're going to have Ruined of the Undermine on their mains this week. The Gilded Crests are the only ones that are like those 90. Where exactly you spend them is very important, because if it's a 2-week tier, sending those to bring, say, a hero trinket or weapon up might be something you really regret based on in your vault or reclear next week. But it might be the biggest short-term gain. So what we're probably going to see is a lot of characters are going to hold those Gilded Crests until something like Sunday, when we know, like, okay, we need this to kill One-Armed Bandit, we need this to kill Muggsy, or we don't need this, and we're thinking this is going to be a 2 reset tier, so let's send it on, you know, the myth track piece so that we get more long-term power.
Yeah, what the final kind of thoughts that I have, splits, they're actually very difficult to tell. Like, you know, once we actually start to see mythic progression happen, we'll see this thing where guilds start to slingshot in, like, ahead of one another.
Yeah.
Where Liquid goes to sleep, Echo gets ahead, Echo goes to sleep, Liquid goes ahead. But that's not until we get to mythic, right? Basically, right now we're in splits, and I would argue that the race is dead even. You know, the race is probably not going to be won or lost in splits, although you can
gain and lose time. Yeah.
Exactly, you can absolutely gain and lose time, but I think it's very difficult from like a spectator POV to tell when these Race World First guilds are gaining or losing time until you are able to look at it after the fact. We're going to be able to see the item levels that these guilds are having. We're going to be able to tell how much like real time that they were able to put in the splits, and after the process is done, then we'll be able to assess like where that value was. But even still, there's still some like RNG on very rare items and just high rolling your items a little bit that could play some variance with the item level that you have on people.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that does shake out. I think that we are going to see probably this time tomorrow when we record. I still don't think Liquid are going to have got to Mythic. I think Liquid are going to do 3 full days of splits and then clean up with some M+ for the last 2 hours of their Thursday. I do suspect that Echo and Method will go into Mythic on their third days, which will be the end of their Fridays, because they had longer day ones, right? They've had like 6 extra hours in their day ones.
That could be the slingshot right there.
Well, it may be short. I mean, it's still a disadvantage to start later, but the longer day one, I think, will mean that it'll be later in terms of time, but earlier in their reset.
Yeah.
That I think they'll be able to go into Mythic, possibly. I'm not confident. That's just that. If I had to guess right now, that's my guess about when everybody's going to go into Mythic. So I think we'll have one more recap video without Mythic bosses to really talk about. Although maybe we'll talk about the other guilds, the non-Race to World First guilds. Right now, as of the time recording this, 1 out of 8 I think is still rank 1. Although I know that there were some guilds at the 20%-ish mark. So yeah, we could take a quick look at
like a Cauldron of Carnage, I think is what they were super low on as well.
Let's see. Yeah, so we've got 54 guilds now at 1 of 8. And 21% is the lowest on a 2 out of 8.
Did you guys kill?
We haven't done Vexie yet. No.
Okay. As I was gonna say, did you kill Vexie?
No, we've done 3 7 of 8 normals. We've done 3 6 of 8 heroics.
Yeah,
and that's where I'm at with 8 hours of raid so far. Oh, and we've done 2 LFRs, 1 Horde, 1 Alliance.
You mentioned you wanted to amend your raid comp earlier. You want to do that tomorrow, or you want to do that?
Yeah, we do that tomorrow.
Okay,
fun. We'll do an amended raid comp going into Mythic.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. That's going to be it for us today. Again, we kind of expect things to really start to pick up over the next, I would say, 48 hours. The next 2.
Yeah, I think we maybe have one more recap video to make where there's just been splits going on. But
yeah,
maybe we'll see. Maybe I wouldn't be. It wouldn't. It's not impossible for a liquid to be 4 out of 8, 5 out of 8 this time tomorrow. Like those are. That's the I think upper end. Of what
it takes. The thing is, it only probably takes 2 hours to be 4 out of 8.
Potentially, yeah. Again,
it could. Okay,
that is another discussion point for tomorrow's video. Is how hard are those early mythic bosses going to actually be? Where does the difficulty jump up this tier?
Yep. All right.
Later, gamers.
Goodbye.